to Go DIY Whitewood. We are going to do a project today where we are going to spray bar stools for a kitchen, and we're going to talk about quality and what to look for when you buy a bar stool or a chair. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, do it now and don't miss a thing. We're on a DIY adventure. Come on, let's get started. So before we begin this project, we wanted to talk with you a little bit about what to look for when you're buying a chair or a stool. Chairs and stools get a ton of abuse. They're used every day. We lean back in them, we stand on them, we do all kinds of things that they're not necessarily meant for. So you want to make sure to look for really, really good quality when you're thinking of buying a stool or a chair. So what do you look for? First, you'll see on this stool, we have a square stretcher. Now historically, stretchers that you've seen in the past are spindles, and spindles are thicker in the center as far as the diameter, and then they kind of taper out on the ends. So when they meet the leg and are put into the leg, you've got less wood going into the structure. So with a square spindle, or a square stretcher, you get a lot more stability because there's a lot more wood meeting wood. Something else that's awesome to look for are these L brackets. The L brackets on a chair or a stool are going to make it where long term, over 5, 10, 15 years of use, they don't get wobbly. So if you can, look for those two attributes. If you ever see a chair or a stool with no stretcher and anything that's between the legs kind of forming that base, that is a stretcher. If you see a stool or a chair without a stretcher, that is an absolute no, because there's no foundation to keep this piece together.
So if you're in the market for a bar stool, just check out our website. We have close to 50 different designs. Now, any good project starts with prep. Even though this is brand new, unfinished wood, it still has to be prepared. So we're going to sand everything down with a 180 grit sandpaper. Then we're going to wipe everything down really, really well with our Tack-cloth. These are the products we're going to use today. We are going to use our HomeRight Finish Max Super Sprayer, which is the best handy dandy tool to save a ton of time, and you don't use nearly as much product. We're going to use our very favorite products from General Finishes. We're going to use their Alabaster milk paint. We're going to use a flat top coat, so these pieces are not going to be shiny at the end of this. But we're going to start out first with our Stain Blocker White Primer. Let me tell you about the beauty of using a sprayer. It saves you so much time, especially when you're talking about stools or chairs. Stools and chairs, when you're painting them, it takes a lot of time because you have to make sure that you get around each of the stretchers or the spindles or the backs of the chairs. This is just seamless and easy and saves a ton of time. So here we're putting on our primer first. After we do this, we're going to sand and wipe everything down. We're going to sand with a 220 grit. Use that Tack-cloth to get off any debris. This is not a heavy sanding at all. This is just taking out any roughness. We're moving on to our paint here. We've done our primer, we've sanded, we've wiped everything off with our Tack-cloth. Now it's time for the fun stuff. We're gonna paint. When you first put your paint or stain into the container, Spray it off of the furniture first. Let it come through the sprayer. Let it actually shoot out and kind of get fluid in the sprayer before you actually start using it on your furniture. This is the other thing you have to keep in mind with the sprayer. This little green piece in the center, that needs to be cleaned off. Okay, we got our first coat of paint on. It's time to grab that 220 grit sandpaper. Give everything a nice light sanding, not removing any of the paint, just getting any of the grit off, making sure everything stays nice and smooth and professional. Then we're gonna wipe everything down with our Tack-cloth again. Okay, so it's time to move on to our top coat. We are gonna give everything a nice even spray. Then we're gonna sand it for the very last time. Wipe everything down with that Tack-cloth. After this last layer of top coat, we are ready to go. There's a misconception that if you don't see an area, you don't need to put any paints or stain or sealer on it. That is not true. If it's unfinished wood, it needs to be covered. These turned out so beautiful. I would put these up against a professionally finished product any day. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you had as much fun as we did. We'll see you next time.